Hello and welcome to the Grill Nation show. I am your host, Jason Grill. Thanks for joining today. If you're listening on 980 AM, we greatly appreciate it. If you're on podcasts, we appreciate that as well. If you're joining us on social media or on any kind of ways that you can watch us right now, as we figure this out, we appreciate it. I'm so excited to be here today again and trying to give you all more and more ways to listen to our show. And today's show is going to be awesome. We are talking, at some point, we're going to be talking to Jim Carr, who's the CEO of the NAIA, National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics. But we're lucky to have on Jeff Phillips, who's the Senior Vice President at Landmark National Bank First. He's a contributor, a partner to the show. They do awesome work here in Kansas City. It's great to have him back. Their website is banklandmark.com. Jeff, great to see you again, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's good to see you too. Glad to see that you've started off the year excited and motivated to test out some new things with the show.
Trying and see, look, I can put your website on here now on the bottom of the screen. We can do a lot of things here, so I'm very excited about it. Let's catch up with you, and then we'll get into our guests today. What is going on with Landmark National Bank, banklandmark.com? What have you been doing since we last spoke?
Yeah, we ended the year just fantastic. I mean, we were so blessed. It ended up actually being the best year in the bank's history. And we experienced kind of some sensational growth here in Kansas City. And really, that's all attributable to great friends and great customers that do cool stuff in town and let us play a small part in it. So we've been really blessed with that. Obviously, the kind of information coming out about the second round of PPP money, the some stimulus things, some of the programs that SBA loans are having payments made for them as part of the stimulus packages. All those create a lot of buzz and a lot of questions. And so you end up kind of trying to become an expert overnight about things that are constantly changing. So we've been spending a lot of time and energy on trying to help people navigate through that and learning about it ourselves. So that's where we've been spending a lot of our time right now. But to be real honest with you, man, I feel very excited about the things that the folks that we work with are working on right now.
That's awesome. Today's show is going to be a good one, man. I'm excited about it. Jim Carr will be joining us here for the show today. Tell us about Jim. Let's kind of talk about what he does and kind of how you know him.
Yeah. So Jim and I got to know each other through, he actually served on a bank board that I was at that financial institution. We got to know each other that way, but we really became friends. The NAIA is an organization that is constantly evolving. And so it's been fun to have conversations with him to do business, obviously, but as a friend to also talk through how they think about how they provide value to their constituency and how they help address problems globally that maybe one institution doesn't have the resources or the capabilities to address themselves. So they really have become an advocate for both institutions and for student athletes. And I think, as you well know, and as we'll probably talk about, smaller colleges and universities are facing a lot of challenges right now. Financially being probably the biggest of those, but also how they position themselves in a market to show that they're a good opportunity for folks. So I'll be interested to hear from Jim, but he's a thinker. The people that he's put around him are thinkers, and I'm sure that he'll give us some insights today that we'll be able to kind of apply to our own worlds.
Yeah, and Jim, Jim's been there for a long time, right? At the NAI, he's been there multiple years.
Yeah, he's been leading the charge for a while. I think, I think that's something to be proud of on his behalf, because that shows that you continue to lead in a way that helps the organization to evolve. And it also gives people an opportunity on that team to grow and advance. And you can kind of look at some of those people that have been around him, and they've been around at the NAIA for a while, but are not in the same position that they started because they've grown, and as needs and opportunities have come up, they've been able to take advantage of that. So I think he's a fantastic leader, and is always fun to talk to and pick his brain.
Yeah, so we're going to get into not only what they do, kind of how they kind of navigated the last year with COVID, of course. I know Jim is also involved with the USA Basketball Association, which I'm hoping we can get a couple good stories from him on that. He's hung around with some movers and shakers in his life, Jeff, I've heard. Yeah. But just kind of how they've been successful, and then also I'd like to talk about some leadership traits that Jim has formed, and maybe kind of pick around that and see kind of what he really has utilized, in his career and at NAIA. And then I think it's just general knowledge for folks, because this organization was founded here in like 1937, I believe. And there's just so much history around it, and it's based here in Kansas City, Missouri. I mean, right in downtown. Just a cool organization that maybe not everyone knows about.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that Kansas City and the NAIA have their histories really tied together. And, it's one of the crown jewels when you think about having the basketball tournaments downtown. And when you see all the people walking to those games and, the hotels that the student athletes are staying in and the fans are staying in, it really creates a buzz around downtown. But even beyond that, I think the organization has done a good job of, a lot of our folks that we work with, business owners, civic leaders, really have been spending a lot of time here recently, kind of trying to be real students of the landscape, because there are things that are moving and shaking not only over this last year because of a pandemic, but really kind of it accelerated some changes that were going to happen anyway within specific industries. So people have to really be students of, okay, this thing over here, I've got to change how I deliver to my constituents or to my customers. But this thing over here is actually starting to become something that I could focus on, and there's a real need for. And the NAIA is not, unique in that. I think all of our business owners have been trying to figure that out, of how do I continue to deliver to my core business to the people that were with me before the pandemic, but also these niche markets and these opportunities that have been created. How do I address those in a quick way, in an efficient way, but also go into it eyes wide open of, can I make money doing that? So the NAIA has done that as well through some of their programs that I'm sure we'll talk about, like Champions of Character.
We definitely will. Jeff Phillips, banklandmark.com is our guest, our great contributor to the show. Jim Carr will be joining us here in a matter of 30 to 45 seconds. We're going to go to break here in a second on the radio and on pod. And obviously, if you're watching this via YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, or on other social platforms, bear with us here. This is our first time doing this. It's exciting. And we'll be right back on the Grill Nation show. I'm your host, Jason Grill. Thanks for joining us today on 980 AM or via podcast. We'll be right back. Okay, I'm going to bring in Jim now as Darren records. Okay, hold on one second.
And how long is this one, Jason?
This will be 11:40.
Okay, thank you.
And look, you're in the right box. I don't know how that happened, but it did.
Good work.
You guys hear me okay?
You bet.
Jeff, things get rough at Landmark. I'm going to hire you as my publicist, man. You're anybody talk so nice about me. Thank you.
Just give me a couple of strokes next time we play, and we'll call it even.
I'm missing.
I need to
golf,
get out of that match.
way.
Okay, guys, Darren is ready to go. We're going to come right back here in a second. I got to remember 11:40. And 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome back to the Grill Nation show. I'm your host, Jason Grill. Thanks for listening today on KMBZ 980 AM via podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. And if you're joining us on social media, we greatly appreciate it. Also at grillnationshow.com. Again, thanks to Jeff Phillips and Landmark National Bank. Banklandmark.com is a contributor to the Grill Nation show, and they come and join us each and every month with a exceptional leader in our community, and whether they're in business, nonprofit, people making difference in Kansas City and throughout the country. And today we have on Jim Carr, who's the CEO of the NAIA. That's the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics. Jeff, I'm going to let you introduce Jim again, and let's go from there.
Okay, well, great. Yeah, I'm excited for everyone to hear from Jim today and to maybe learn more about the NAIA, maybe get some insights. But if nothing else, just to hear from a civic leader in town that's, sometimes we hear about these companies that are in town or these organizations are in town, but we don't really know what they do on a day-to-day basis. So I think that'll be fun for everyone to hear from. But Jim and I have become friends over the last probably 10, 11, 12 years. He served on a board of an organization that I was a part of, and we got to know each other through that, but then just became friends. And I've enjoyed doing business with the NAIA, but more or less have really enjoyed supporting them as they try to promote student athletes and kind of smaller colleges and universities. And they do a great job as far as organizationally looking on the landscape, seeing where opportunities are for them to deliver value, and then attacking those. So I'm anxious to get started.
Yeah. So, Jim, give us a little flyover about the NAIA. I know I have your About Us up on my screen right now, but, I want to talk about kind of what your mission is and kind of how you touch so many different things, from the national championships to the amount of students and the amount of scholarships. So just give us a little flyover about the NAIA.
Yeah, I mean, for folks listening in Kansas City, we started as a basketball tournament in 1937 in Municipal Auditorium right in downtown Kansas City. James Naismith, among others, were part of our founding group. And in the, how many years is that? 80 plus years that we've been in existence. We've gone from that basketball tournament to now having 28 national championships across various men's and women's sports, about 77,000 student athletes represented by at 250 institutions, primarily smaller type institutions, average enrollment somewhere around 17 or 1,800 students. So we're really in the business of trying to help those institutions grow people of character through athletics. Kids go to our schools to do something they love to do, and that's compete at a very high level and compete for national championships. But most importantly, get a good education, and then through athletics and through that kind of training ground, become better people and go and be successful, not only wherever they decide to work, but going to be great moms and dads and just civic leaders and people in the community that we're all proud of.
And how long have you been over there, Jim?
About 22 years. I started in 1998 as essentially chief operating officer, and then in 2006 became president.
Okay, so you've been through a lot there, huh? You've done a lot, man. You've seen a lot of different champions.
Yeah, seen a lot of changes, a lot of good athletics events, and crowned a lot of champions for sure. 27
championships, is that right?
28.
28. Okay, so you guys have grown that over the last few years.
Yeah, we have. We've added sports that I never thought of when I joined in 1998 that we would have. We have men's and women's bowling. We just recently had a women's wrestling. When people told me we were going to do women's wrestling, I just thought, what in the world are you talking about? But it's become very popular, and these young women are just as competitive as their male counterparts. We have cheer and dance, so a lot of things. And then we started a separate association about 5 years ago for esports. So I don't know if we have time to get into that, but it's called the National Association of Collegiate Esports. Both NAI and NCAA type schools are a part of that. Everybody from a school of 500 up to the University of Missouri are now part of that 200 member association.
Give us some of the schools that are involved with the NAIA, just again, so our listeners know what kind of colleges we're talking about here. Maybe some of the local ones.
Yeah, here locally, Park University up in Parkville, Baker, Avila, Benedictine, to name a few.
Yeah, I know, Jeff. I'm sure you've probably worked with or met many people that have played sports at those schools who now are colleagues of ours, in whether it's banking or PR or you name it. I find that I meet more and more people that played sports at Baker or Park than I ever have.
Yeah, it's not uncommon for folks that are in leadership positions, especially, to have honed those skills in some kind of sport as in high school or collegiately. And then those of us that weren't good enough to play collegiately, like to just hang out with cool guys like Jim that did play collegiately.
I'm interested real quickly, just why we mentioned it. Tell us about the esports stuff, because that's a trend, and a lot of millennials and people younger than millennials are kind of making money at some level, like with this gaming stuff. And I don't really understand how the collegiate stuff works, but it seems to be something that was good to get involved with, Jim.
Yeah, so back in 2016, we had 5 NAIA schools and 1 NCAA Division II school that we were connected with, and who led by Robert Morris up in Chicago, were kind of the first. They were the first school to label what they were doing in esports as varsity competition. So they were recruiting students to come in, giving some scholarships around that. And so these 6 schools started off to say, let's create an association that only brings in schools who are doing varsity esports. And so now we're at almost 200. We have championships across, I can't remember if it's 10 or 11 different games. Everything from Rocket League to NBA 2K to League of Legends is one of the most popular games out there. And so these schools are recruiting young men and women. It's predominantly a male, mostly male students, but we're trying to do everything we can to create some diversity. And they come in a lot like traditional student athletes would, and they hone their skills in a particular game, and then try to create a team that can go on and compete very well. And then we have a national championship at the end of the road in each one of these game titles.
How many people work with you at the NAIA in-house?
We have about 55 full-time, and then we have an eligibility center that adds another 20 to 25 on a seasonal basis as we're ramping up. And then I was just talking about NACE, our esports division. We have 4 employees that are handling all that stuff right now.
You guys have grown a lot over those 20 or so years you've been there. What do you think's been the biggest reason for the success and the growth throughout all these years?
Yeah, the NAIA's done so many great things over the years. Had a lot of firsts. We basically integrated college basketball when John Wooden brought the first African-American player to Kansas City to compete. And really we're establishing ourselves as a high-level brand of competition. But over the last 20, 25 years, we really pivoted to focus on small colleges and really to try to help them figure out what it means to have a positive impact on your campus. So how do we recruit the top quality students onto our campus? How do we retain those students? How can we give them the opportunities, as I mentioned before, to compete at a very high level, but to do all that in a way that helps the institution, helps them to make sure that they're growing and on solid ground financially. We call it return on athletics, but that's really been a big niche of ours. And starting an eligibility center, esports is certainly a part of that vision, to do things outside of traditional athletics that helps the school to attract students and bring people on the campus.
Yeah, I wondered, Jim, if you wouldn't mind sharing just real quick what the eligibility center is. That started, 6 years ago?
It's hard to believe, Jeff. It's almost 10 years old.
Oh my gosh! Okay,
we just had our 10th anniversary over the summer, and we have about 35 to 40,000 students who come through the eligibility center. Essentially, anyone who is coming into the NAIA for the first time, whether they're a traditional student out of high school, maybe a transfer student from an NCAA school or junior college, or coming in internationally, they have to get a determination that says they're eligible to go compete at an NAIA school. And it really formed out of some issues we were having around international students. It was becoming more challenging for schools to really understand what those students have been doing competitively. And so we started it for that reason, but it's been a great way to get the word out about the NAIA to the high school community. We have some great partnerships with national recruiting services now because of that. And so it's not only served or solved a problem we were having around consistency in terms of application of our rules, but now it's been a great marketing platform for us as well. And been a big part of, when I started, we had about 40 to 45,000 student athletes. Now we have 77,000. So a lot of great growth over time, and the eligibility center has been a part of that.
We
Jason,
got about a minute and 20 seconds left, Jeff. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think that's a prime example of what we were talking about earlier about kind of looking at the landscape and seeing where there's a need and an opportunity. And, the NAIA was in a position where they could dedicate resources to kind of take that burden off of their constituencies, but also then deliver kind of something that, like Jim was just saying, becomes a marketing tool in essence. So it was meeting a need with an immediate product, but also figuring out how to deliver that to where it actually benefited everybody. I think that's a great example.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to describe it, Jeff. And I think, maybe in the next segment, one of the segments, we're going to talk a little bit about leading an association. And so it took us 2 or 3 years to get there, to kind of convince our members that it was something that was good for them. But as it turned out, I think we're pretty much unanimous in that it's been a great thing for the NAIA.
Hey, Jim, before we go to break here in 30 seconds, kind of give us some what big events are coming up for you all with the national championships?
Yeah, keep your fingers crossed because we're in the COVID environment. But our basketball championship will be men's tournament will be March 18th through the 23rd down at Municipal Auditorium. And then men's wrestling down in Wichita. We've got indoor track and field up in South Dakota. To name a few of our winter championships are on the rise. Women's basketball in Sioux City as well.
Great stuff. Jim Carr is our guest today. Also, Jeff Phillips is joining us from Landmark National Bank. We'll be right back with more Grill Nation. Thanks for joining us today on 980 AM, online, or on podcast. We'll be right back. Okay, guys, that was great. We'll start there. I didn't screw with any of the new technology. I was afraid it would screw us up. I wanted to make Jim bigger at one point just to see if I could do that. I'm going to try that now. Probably not going to work.
Up straighter or what? Get bigger.
Here's the old-fashioned way to make Jim bigger.
That's right. So if I'm going to show losing our hair on top, Jeff.
Yeah, I don't want any close-ups.
Now look at that.
Wow.
That was really big.
Wow.
Oh, man. Okay. I won't have too much fun.
How long is this one, Jason?
Same length. Same length.
So this is basically what the viewer's seeing.
They'll see this. Yeah.
Set.
Well, if we post this, they'll see it. But in the future, we're going to start doing this. So people have really liked to see and hear the show in different formats. And so that is our goal.
Yeah.
Again, I'm a novice, so I'm just trying not to screw anything up a little bit. Okay, Darren, can you hear me? Darren is in the chat. Can you hear me? Okay. Just let us know when you're ready. Okay. In 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome back to the Grill Nation show. I'm your host, Jason Grill. Thanks for listening to the show today. However you're listening, we greatly appreciate it. If you're on the radio, again, we're on 980 AM, KMBZ. Again, today we are joined by an awesome group of guests. I want to thank Jim Carr, the CEO of NAIA, for joining us today. Jeff Phillips, Senior Vice President at Landmark National Bank. And I'm, of course, your host, Jason Grill. Thanks to Landmark for putting together this awesome show today. Their website is banklandmark.com, and the NAIA is at naia.org. We were talking a little bit about kind of the leadership that it takes to kind of ramp all of these things up that you've done in the last few years and over the last 20 years, of course. What leadership traits, Jim, do you think have really served you the best over all these years and helped you accomplish what you're trying to accomplish for the student athlete and for the organizations involved with the NAIA?
Yeah, Jason, it's a great question. The a lot of different things go into running an association, a lot of different constituents that we're trying to reach. For me, it's really, I guess, first of all, knowing and understanding that I don't have all the answers, and I certainly can't do things myself. So we put together a great team, and that team continues to evolve, and just trying to make sure that we have as diverse a group as we can with lots of different strengths and weaknesses, and that we align and work together to try to accomplish a lot of things. I think in terms of getting things passed or moving things through, we were just talking about the eligibility center. Determination certainly comes to mind. I think just not giving up and being willing to just hear people out, but then at the same time trying to encourage, motivate, mobilize people to move in the same direction. And again, not being discouraged when at first it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. So kind of staying the course and being determined to see it through to the finish line. I hope that I have some ability to do that and to motivate people and to get them to see that even things that they haven't thought of. And the eligibility center again comes to mind. There are a lot of people who didn't think that was a good idea. The system was working okay as it was, but there were a lot of different mechanisms and ways to think about it. We were able to encourage people to accept that there might be a better way to do it, and then to prove out that point and move forward with it.
I would think your constituency, do they really, I'm guessing they vary in all sorts of different ways. Student size, obviously logistically, maybe structure as far as whether they're nonprofit, for-profit. I mean, can you talk about kind of how diverse the group is? Yeah,
I mean, our members are all we do have one or two for-profit institutions, but by and large, they're not-for-profit institutions, about 80% private schools. So we do have about 20% of our schools are public, and that the private public does cause some, I wouldn't say challenges, but just different approaches that schools take. And then we have some schools who are very committed to athletics, and they have goals of winning national championships. And then we have others who just sort of see it as something that's nice for their students to be able to participate, but not trying to compete at that national level. And so one of the challenges is trying to create not only rules, but just these new initiatives and things that we're moving forward to do so. It either benefits the vast majority of them, or at least each of them can see something of benefit within each area. And so, yeah, Jeff, it's pretty diverse group and lots of different opinions. And then within each member, obviously student athletes have their own set of needs and wants, as do coaches, athletics directors, faculty members. And then I work most closely with our college presidents. And in that group, you have some, a recent board chair was a college basketball coach, but then we have some council of presidents members who really are learning on the job and know very little about athletics. So it's an interesting puzzle to try to put together. I guess maybe it's one way to think about it.
Always is. Jim Carr is with us, CEO of NAIA. Jim, in our last segment, you mentioned, you said COVID because of all these championships you're trying to put on. We're still kind of in that era. We're coming out of it now. But, what have you learned over the last year that's maybe kind of helped you grow and actually kind of innovate? And where do we stand with everything right now?
Yeah, I think as a leader, what it's probably shown all of us, if not most of us, is that in this era, there really are no right and wrong answers, or very few right and wrong answers. We're trying to understand COVID as best we can. I mean, one example that comes to mind for me is we have a great advisory panel made up of 5 doctors. As sort of a side note, we were talking earlier about NAIA student athletes going on to do great things. Well, Dana Hawkinson, who you may have seen locally on television with KU Med, as an epidemiologist and kind of become an expert. He played soccer at St. Ambrose, one of our institutions, and so I twisted Dana's arm to be a part of this panel. But
I can't remember a day where I didn't see Dana Hawkinson.
I know, right?
I know, right? Yeah, he's all over the place. And our kids went to school together, so I had the good fortune of knowing Dana even before I knew I was going to have to twist his arm to become a trusted advisor on moving forward. But what Dana and the 4 other doctors on this panel will tell us is that as much as they're experts, as much as they know, they're still learning every day about what COVID, how it impacts our communities, but in particular to athletics, how we need to be thinking about the spread, what's safe, what are the protocols, how to use testing, all these different things. And so I continue to tell our membership, we're doing the best that we can with the information that we have today. And so show us some grace, be patient with us. And so I have to remind myself of those two things as well, that whether it's with our staff, whether it's with other NAIA members, whoever it might be, that I need to be patient and understand that people are trying to deal with this as best they can. And back to your question, Jason, so we're taking all this data, all the information we have, and trying to move forward with championships as safely as we possibly can. And one of the other things I think I've learned through COVID is that it's really amplified things for us, both in terms of our strengths and probably our weaknesses. One of the real strengths of the NAIA is we've always given a lot more autonomy to our member institutions to do things as they see fit and helps them drive the mission of their institutions. Much less bureaucratic, I think it's fair to say, than the NCAA is, where it's a little more top down. So in the COVID era, that's really allowed our members and our conferences, we have 21 conferences across the country, to move forward in the fall with athletics and now into the winter season, if they thought it was safe to do so, as opposed to being prescriptive and saying you can't do these things or can't do those. And we pushed our fall championships back into April, essentially. So now we're ramping up to have our winter championships essentially in March, fall championships in April, and then our regular spring championships in May. And we're so far doing pretty well. We did just announce we had to cancel our swimming and diving championship because of some challenges in the host community in Columbus, Georgia. But all 27 others are scheduled to go on as scheduled. The first one's just 3 weeks away. So again, we're keeping our fingers crossed that men's wrestling and indoor track and field will be our first two, and then we'll head into basketball and the others after that.
Hey, Jim, I know you're on the USA Basketball Board, right?
Right.
What is that like? I mean, what have, I mean, I always just think about the Dream Team, of course, and obviously we've seen a lot of documentaries recently about Michael Jordan and Barkley and all those guys. You have any good stories for us or anything you can share publicly?
Yeah. I mean, at the board level, we operate like a typical board, looking at finances and things, but we do have some insight both on the men's and women's team. And the women's team, just real quick, they've been just dominant, pretty much ever since the Olympics started for women's sports. But they've lost like one game in 20 years, so it's been fun to watch them. But of course, the men's team gets most of the attention. And I came in 1998 at the NAIA, and the NAIA had a spot on the USA Basketball Board. And my predecessor was a baseball guy. He played Major League Baseball. And was like, I know you're a basketball guy, so would you be our representative to the USA Basketball Board? And I was like, would I? Of course I would. That'd be great. We've restructured the board, but basically 20 out of the last 22 years I've been a part of that board. It's just been incredible. I guess my favorite story is actually from my son, who was 12 at the time, back in 2016. He was able to be a ball boy for the team as they trained in Las Vegas for about a week. So we were hanging out with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and a lot of those guys who were on the 2016 team. And then with his sister, the three of us traveled over to Brazil, and USA Basketball rented out a cruise ship for the team to stay and all of us who were associated with it. So, we were not necessarily in the hot tub with Paul George, but we were right there, hanging out next to him and his buddies. And again, Kevin Durant, Jimmy Butler, Kyrie Irving couldn't have been nicer than my son, who was the ball boy. And I guess in terms of leadership, we've been that's been a thread throughout this. I think my favorite thing was watching back in the early 2000s, really USA Basketball was kind of in disarray on the men's side. We'd come in sixth in the World Championships, and then bronze medal in 2004, which for some countries would be great, but for USA was not acceptable. And so we brought in Jerry Colangelo, who just was a driving force to essentially go to people like LeBron and Kobe Bryant and say, you need to be proud to play for your country. I know you're making $1 bajillion a year, but I'm asking you to become leaders on this team. And then the second thing he did was he hired Coach K to be a part of that. And so to watch Jerry and Coach K navigate with all these egos of the players, but really to get them bought in, they're not getting paid. And sometimes we don't even accommodate their entourages to travel out to all these things. But they've said playing for my country is an incredible thing. And now we have General Marty Dempsey, who's really gotten the military involved as part of this. And the Wounded Warrior and some other things. So these players can interact with the military and just to move forward in a way that's kind of uniting for the country and winning again, which is nice, has been just awesome to be a part of and to watch.
Jim Carr is our guest today, CEO of the NAIA, also joined today by Jeff Phillips from Landmark National Bank. We won't talk any more about the Brazil stories today, Jim, but off the line, we might ask you about some of those when Jeff and I hang out with you again. Thanks for everyone for joining us on the Grill Nation show today with Jason Grill. We'll be right back after the break here on the radio, on podcast, or on social media, or on our website, grillnationshow.com. Okay, so Jim, this is all being taped, but you did go to Brazil. That was the one that was there was some concerns about that one, right? Traveling to that one, am I too old to remember correctly?
No, there was
there's a lot of golfers I know. A lot of golfers didn't play in it. And,
yeah, I mean, first of all, Brazil's pretty corrupt, so there were some challenges around that. But then there was the what was the virus that people were worried that it could have a real impact on your reproductive system.
Is the Zika virus, wasn't it?
Zika virus.
Yeah.
So like Russell Westbrook, he and his wife were trying to get pregnant, so they didn't go for that reason. And then some of the golfers, I think, were in that same. It ended up being not really an issue, but it was a pretty big scare 6 months or a year out. So a lot of big name athletes backed out.
Okay, this is our last segment, everyone. It's 9 minutes and 8 seconds.
Awesome.
And we are ready. In 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome back to the Grill Nation show with Jason Grill. I appreciate you joining us again today. This is our last segment of today's show. Again, today we're joined by Jeff Phillips, Senior Vice President of Landmark National Bank, and Jim Carr, who's the CEO of the NAIA. Appreciate you both joining us, and obviously appreciate Landmark Bank and everything they do in this community, and Jeff Phillips, of course, and his team there. Jeff, do you want to lead off this segment, or do you want me to start firing some questions?
No, I mean, I don't know how we'll follow up, because it sounds like the motto is you've never lived until you have stood next to Kevin Durant at a cruise ship buffet. So we all can aspire to achieve that level someday.
I was at the craps table with him one time. That was kind of fun too, but that's for another day.
Jim, how tall are you, by the way?
About 6'3", so I'm fairly tall, but Kevin is almost 7 feet.
He'd be a small guard in today's NBA world.
He was not hard to spot at the Wynn Casino at the craps table.
Jim, I was wondering if you would be willing maybe to share with us. We've been lucky enough to be a part of the Champions of Character. Could you talk about where that originated from, what the motivation was, and kind of how it's evolved over its first few years?
Yeah, Jeff, thanks for allowing me to do that. And we were talking earlier about the growth of the NAIA, and it's certainly been a place where we've kind of put the flag in the sand. And I like to think all of our members, but certainly almost all of them, Champions of Character plays an active role in their campuses. But back when I first started, almost 20 or a little over 20 years ago, we were having a lot of discussions, as we do today, about how do we distinguish ourselves from the NCAA? What's different about the NAIA? What's not only unique but also compelling as we're thinking about our organization? And at the time, what those leaders of the association kept talking about is our coaches, since we started, have really been building people of character through college athletics. So they're there to compete and try to win championships, but coaches really understand that the most important thing they can do is help people become better, help teenagers become adults is one way to think about it as they go through their college years. And so even though our coaches were already doing that, we thought, well, if we could put some structure around that and really give them more tools and more resources to help their young people that are in their charge, how great that would be. So we started our Champions of Character program. A guy named Bruce Brown, who was a legendary coach, gave us a lot of our programming and our materials, and then we've kind of built out from there. We also did a lot of things to allow our schools to then take it out into their local communities, selfishly to help the NAIA brand, but partly to just help them continue their mission and to try to recruit students at their local and regional high schools. And in grade schools and middle schools. So it really has more from this concept of something we do internally to something that we now do at every championship. Jeff, you mentioned Landmark Bank has been involved, and you were involved previously before you got to Landmark Bank with our honorary coach program. One of the real, I think, things that sets NAIA championships apart. People like Jeff can sit on the bench with a team, be a part of how they're preparing, go in the locker rooms, take them out to a meal. And so we thank all of our honorary coaches around town, but especially Jeff and Kenny Lawrence, who've done that for a number of years. And one other quick plug for Landmark Bank, when all the PPP stuff was coming out and we were somewhat in a panic, I think it's fair to say, Jeff, as you became involved with that, Jeff Phillips came to mind first for me to say, I knew Landmark Bank was very heavily involved with SBA, and so I thought nobody better than Jeff to really help us figure out how do we get positioned to be a part of that program. And now we're doing it for a second time, and we couldn't have been any more pleased with the service we got from Jeff and the folks at Landmark. And so
thanks,
Jeff's
Jim.
a real leader in the community and a real great banker. So thank you for that, Jeff.
Appreciate that.
Hey, I'm curious, as a person who's been around sports his life, if you had a 24-hour period where you could do anything in a sport or watch a sport or do whatever you wanted to do, what would that be and why, Jim? We have some fun questions at the end.
I've been to a lot of great sporting events. We talked about the Olympics, Final Fours, World Series, NBA championships, but I've never been to the Super Bowl. And so the Chiefs, of course,
there was a couple opportunities to go, Jim. I don't know what we hadn't been there in 50 years. You might have gone last year.
I know. I was trying to get in position to go, but it just didn't work out. And this year with COVID, just was not a good year to try it.
I think you might have skipped a good one this year.
Last year would have been much better for lots of reasons, but especially the Chiefs winning. But that would be one. And then, I love to play golf, and so as more of a participant, a lot of great courses I'd love to play, but I'd love to go out and play at Augusta National at some point. So that'd be a lot of fun as well.
Mm-hmm. So you picked the number one golf course to play. That means Jim's played some good ones, Jeff. There's some that he's already played that are probably that are dream courses, bucket list ones for us.
Right. Well, and Jim's got the game that he could actually post a respectable score there. I was thinking through that same thing. If I'd love to play in a pro-am or something like that, and then immediately I was fear-stricken by it, but then I would have to actually play.
Yeah,
I took in Kapalua in Hawaii via a simulator in the Northland last weekend. So I played in Hawaii last weekend officially.
Yeah,
First time I've ever been there.
I would love to get a simulator. That's another thing I'd love to do, but that would be a good one to choose.
You got to have a high garage, high ceilings for that, Jim.
Exactly. I don't have that luxury.
Hey, if you had to select one word to describe kind of what NAIA is and it's all about, what would that be and why?
I'd go with character. There are a lot of words that come to mind, but that's really what we encourage and in some cases require our members to do. And so that would come to mind. But family is another one that I think sets us apart a little bit. If you're in the membership, if you have the chance to go to our annual convention, it really is like a big family reunion. It sounds a little bit corny, but it's something that holds our membership together. And I'm always amazed that when I sit in meetings, even if it's somewhat contentious around ways to structure, a conference championship or qualification for a national championship, there really is a great respect that our members have for each other. And so I think character is embedded in all that.
Mm-hmm. What's one of your proudest moments at NAIA that you can point to as a leader of the organization?
Oh man, great question. I think it's how we're navigating COVID. I was really nervous about it to begin with, but I get messages from presidents, and I don't say this to toot my own horn. It's definitely a team effort, both in terms of our staff, but also our leadership groups. But when we got the notice the other day that NCAA had canceled all Division III championships for the winter season, our members were really appreciative of the fact that we allowed them to continue on and that we're doing everything we can to have those championships. I'm at the same time very nervous about it because there are no guarantees of things, and we owe it to the communities that we're going into to keep people safe there. But I'm really proud of the way we've come at that and the way we've moved forward.
And then finally, What's some of the best advice you've ever received, whether at the NAIA or in your life and your upbringing or whenever it happened, that you could share with us that maybe might help business leaders out there that are listening today?
Yeah, I think back to my parents, and as I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do coming out of college, and I was just like, I think most of us, maybe you guys already knew exactly what you wanted to do, but most of us have no idea.
I still don't know, Jim.
Exactly. I don't really either. But my parents, who really stressed education, I guess that was the first part of it. But then secondly, encouraged me to follow my passion. And, as I was getting into college athletics, there was certainly no guarantee I could make a living doing that. But they told me to, if you follow your passion, you'll figure it out, and you'll always enjoy what you're doing, and that's more important than trying to pursue something to make a bunch of money. I did take a detour and went to law school and practiced law for a while, but figured out pretty quickly I wanted to get back into athletics if I was able to. So that was some good advice. And then I think one of my first bosses really encouraged me to trust the people around you and try to do things to make them better, and surround yourselves with smarter people than you are, and who have strengths that you don't. And so I've tried to do that as well. Like one president once told me, if you think you're the smartest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room. So that's kind of one way to think about it. That
good point.
You need to have people smarter than you are to help you push things along.
Jim, I really appreciate it today. Jim Carr, CEO of the NAIA, Jeff Phillips, Landmark National Bank Senior VP. Thanks for joining us today on the Grill Nation Show with Jason Grill. This was an awesome show. I love all that advice too, Jim. I really appreciate it. Congrats on all your success.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. Thanks for everything you're doing for the community. I know your show is a great one, and I hear your name all around town about some of the great things you're doing. So thanks for that.
But it's definitely not about my golf game, but it'll get better at some point. Jeff, thank you guys, everyone. Appreciate you listening today. We'll see you again next week. Take care and have a great day. Okay. Well, we've taped the show without any really major problems.
Great job, Jim.
Thank you guys.
I didn't change all the graphics on us. I got nervous. During the show, but I have them for future ones. I'm going to take a photo of us real quick. If I can enlarge my screen here so we can use this on social.
Yeah, and Jason, I know our marketing folks are willing and very interested in helping to share this out. So I know it doesn't actually air until Saturday, but whatever you want to send me, I can forward on to them to help promote it if that would be helpful.
Definitely. Okay, give me 1 second, guys. Okay. And let's get a picture here in 3, 2, 1. Okay. And I'm going to take a smaller one here in a second, too. And this is all going to be on TV for people to look at. That's going to be awesome. In 3, 2, 1. Okay. I'm going to do our sneak peek. I don't know if it's going to work, but let's try it. If I can edit it. So let's just do a 2-minute quick sneak peek for the show at the end of this tape.
Anything in particular?
So what do you think, Jeff? I mean, I like some of that advice you gave. That was really good at the end. I enjoyed that. I don't know if Jeff wants to focus on something else for the teaser.
No, I think that was really good.
Okay. So let's do that, Jim. Let's just finish where we or start where we finished, okay?
Okay.
In 3, 2, 1. Hello, it's Jason Grill with the Grill Nation Show. Thanks for joining us on this sneak peek for this week's show. I'm joined by Jim Carr, CEO of the NAIA, and Jeff Phillips, Senior Vice President at Landmark National Bank. I want to turn it over to Jim here. Jim, I know you've been doing a lot in your career for many years as a leader in your association and just across the community and across the country. What's some of the best advice you've received throughout this journey?
Yeah, Jason, I've had the good fortune of working with a lot of great leaders, college presidents, and leaders in college athletics. And I think some of the best advice they've given me is really to try to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you are, have strengths that you don't, so that they can complement things you're trying to do, and then turn those people loose to empower them to go out and make decisions and to make the organization a better place. So I've tried to do that. there are times when that can be a challenge, but certainly try to do that whenever I can.
Jim, so essentially you try not to be the smartest person in the room. Is that right?
Yeah, I was told by a college president early on that if you think you're the smartest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room. So I've tried to follow that advice and always search out people who are smarter and can do things better than I can in certain ways. So it's been good advice.
Well, thankfully, I am definitely not the smartest person in this room, and
I feel like I'm not the smartest person in the room when I'm by myself. So
I've definitely made the right decision. This is going to be a great show this week. We're going to have an awesome time, some fun questions. So we're going to learn a lot about the NAIA and what they're doing as well, about Jim Carr and what he's doing, and also about what Jeff's doing at Landmark National Bank. Thanks for watching this sneak peek for this week's Grill Nation show. We'll see you again soon. Take care. Okay. I don't know how that'll work, but it might air, it might not, but we'll figure it out. But I really appreciate you guys bearing with me today. And Jim, now where do you play golf at mostly?
Mostly the same place Jeff does, Indian Hills.
Okay, I thought about joining there, but now I guess I can't get in because you two are there. No, I'm still up north. I'm still up north up at the Deuce.
There you go.
So, but I live in Brookside now, so it's kind of a haul. So I'm trying to figure out my next move in life.
Yeah, well, you can keep thinking on the membership part, but when the snow gets off the ground, Jeff and I'll definitely have to get you out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before you got on, Jeff, I think Jason and I were talking about our mutual friend Ryan Rink. Rink says he's retired from golf, but maybe we can get him to be the fourth, or we can find somebody to be our fourth.
I bet we could find somebody.